Welcome to the Lansdowne Public Library's Geek Out podcast, where we geek out about just about anything.
This week, we're going to be talking about the English Premier League.
Yep.
From what I understand, highest tier of English football.
Yes. There's a large pyramid, and that's at the top.
Well, I'm your one host, Dave.
I'm your other host, Jeff.
And this week we have the wonderful and amazing expert at all things English Premier League, John. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you guys for having me.
I guess the first question we should probably pose is, what is the English Premier League?
Okay. So the English Premier League is, like I said before, at the top of the so-called football pyramid of England, which goes down all the way down to semi-pro level and probably even further than that. So you have the Premier League is like the top of the top, most watched league in the world, has the most money in the world. All the teams are insanely rich, and it shows on the quality on the field. So it is, in my opinion, the best league in the world.
You say it's a pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
Are there how many leagues are there in England?
So professional leagues, there are 4. It goes, the Premier League's the top, and then there's the Championship, League One, and League Two. So there is 92 teams in that so-called pyramid.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's realistically, well, not realistically, but potentially you could work your way up from League 2, get promoted into each league, and then, hypothetically be able to win the Premier League. Not so much anymore with the amount of money that's in the game, but it is, that's the hypothetical dream of all those teams.
That is very interesting.
Yeah. It's a lot different from American sports.
Yeah, I was going to say, generally, the Blue Hens aren't ever actually going to be an MLB team.
Exactly,
It's not how that's designed. As amazing as that would be.
Yeah, but it's funny. I always think of it as it's the most capitalistic thing I've ever seen. You think of, not to get too political on a soccer podcast, but you think of American sports, it's kind of very socialized. The Eagles aren't going anywhere. They're going to be in the NFL forever. But, Arsenal, if they have 2 or 3 bad seasons, lose a couple sponsors, lose millions of dollars, they can get relegated, and who knows how far they can fall. I mean, there's been Premier League teams that have been relegated and have been relegated 2 times in successive seasons after that. So it's very boom or bust for those smaller teams that are trying to get in there.
That's pretty high stakes, especially for a professional,
very high stakes
athlete league. Huh.
Again, it's such an odd thing to consider. I can't imagine a situation in which, the Phillies, well, they're the Phillies. I love them, but they're terrible.
Yeah.
But we're not going to see them booted out and replaced with another team.
Yeah.
But that can actually happen in the Premier League.
It's very, very cutthroat, especially towards the end of the season when, those teams who are fighting not to get relegated, they're fighting tooth and nail. It is a big deal.
I'm almost thinking of it now like a reality show. Every season, are there teams that will get relegated, or?
So every season, 3 teams get relegated. So 3 teams go down and 3 teams come up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty exciting.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's very exciting, especially as a neutral. If I was a fan of one of those teams, I would pull my hair out there every year. But as a neutral, they're very exciting.
So it's English soccer, football. How does that differ from, American, and especially with, the MLS, the Major League Soccer?
So the biggest difference is that the Premier League has 100 years of history behind it, and MLS has about 25.
Honestly surprised to hear it's been that many.
Yeah. So they were formed around 95, 96-ish. And, with that, it's kind of... So there's not as much investment as say the Premier League, who has all the biggest companies in the world vying to buy your shirt sponsorship or something. MLS has had to build that over the last 25 years, and it's getting there. Still needs to get a little bigger, but it is definitely getting there. And I think being in America is going to start to have a little bit more pull than, say, going to Italy or a South American league or something like that. I think it will grow a lot more in the next 10 years, I think. But if you're talking like soccer-wise, not business-wise, like all the best players in the world are in the Premier League, and it is just so much faster there. You have the top athletes, the top soccer players. Like, the MLS is fast, but like the MLS to the Premier League is probably what like college soccer to the MLS is. Like, it's on a different level.
Yeah, I know I personally don't think of like a lot of other foreign sports leagues. I really can't name many, but I know this one is the big one.
Yeah.
Let's dive more into it. What are the teams? What is someone who wants to get into it? Let's say someone wants to pick a team, or they're just breaking in. They see EPL and I want to do this. What are they looking at?
I mean, it's a broad topic, but there's 20 teams. There's the so-called Big Six, which are the 6 biggest teams, which thankfully Arsenal is one of them. We haven't been kicked out yet. So, I mean, if you're a glory hunter, like you want to be a fan of the team that's going to win all the time, your New England Patriots, your Yankees, your Lakers,
all of the worst teams,
all of the worst teams. You can add Manchester City in there. You could add Chelsea in there. Historically great team that is kind of down on their luck right now. Liverpool is also an historically great team. They've had, great teams throughout the 20th century and have just, started being dominant again in the last 4 or 5 years. And then you got like your mid-table teams, like your Aston Villas, your West Hams, Evertons, just teams that don't have any fear of being relegated, but they're also not going to win anything. Maybe they'll make a cup run, but they're not winning the league at all. So you got those teams. Leeds United, they just got promoted a couple of years ago, but they have 3 Americans on their team, which is like huge. This is the most Americans. Well, their coach is American, and then they have two Americans, both from New Jersey, I believe, that they just signed this summer. So that's
soccer players in America seem to come from.
Yeah. So if I were talking to somebody who didn't know anything about the sport, I'd probably start with the Leeds United. Just you have that immediate connection with the Americans there. They're going to be fun. They're going to lose some games. They're going to win some games. It'll be a roller coaster, but it'll be fun. Because, what's winning every week? That's boring, And then under that, you have the just promoted teams, who, will be hard pressed to probably stay in the league after this year. But, if you wanted a good underdog team, like one of those teams would be good.
How long is a typical season?
So this year is weird because there's a Winter World Cup. The World Cups are usually in the summer, but FIFA, in their best interest, decided to award Qatar the World Cup, and you can physically not play soccer in the summer there. So, but in
actually melt.
Yeah, in a normal year, the season would be middle of May or middle of August. I apologize, middle of August to about May.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So there's the confusing thing is there's like seasons within the season. So you have the Premier League season, which is 38 games. But then you have the FA Cup thrown in, you have the EFL Cup thrown in, and then for the larger teams, you have European competitions that they're in. So with all those things happening, maybe one weekend there's an FA Cup game, so the league won't play. It's just be FA Cup. So there's weeks off, and they'll be in a different competition one week and then come back to the league the next week. So it's always on. That's the one thing I will say about soccer is there's always a game on.
That's got to be a nice feel.
It is. You can kind of plan your week around it. It's great.
So you've chosen Arsenal.
Yes.
What drove you to pick them, and where are they from?
So Arsenal is in North London. Arsenal and Tottenham are both in North London. Those are arch rivals. I kind of like to explain it as if, like, the Eagles and the Cowboys were both in South Philly. Like, what the Eagles had, like, you know, the east side of Broad, and the Cowboys had the west side of Broad, and then they would play twice a year.
I don't think the city would survive.
Exactly.
No, I would love to see that. I would love to see that.
So, yeah, so they're in North London, and this is, you know, I get asked this all the time about how I became an Arsenal fan. But I played soccer my whole life since I was 5, and I really didn't get into it until the 2006 World Cup. And I'm sitting there watching France versus Brazil in the quarterfinal. And I know there's a legendary performance by one player, Zinedine Zidane, who just absolutely ran the game. But I started following the French striker, Thierry Henry, and I was like, holy crap, this guy can fly. He was so fast. He can, you know, ball comes over his head and he just touches it and it just dead right in his tracks. And he ended up scoring the winning goal that France won 1-0. And I was like, I like this guy. I'm going to follow him. And at the time, he played for Arsenal. And I was like, all right, I'm an Arsenal fan. And a year later, he left to go to Barcelona. And I was like, do I follow the player or do I stay with the team? And I stay with the team, and it has been an awesome, excruciating 15 years since. I loved every minute of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite stories to tell.
So, who's your favorite player now? Either in the league, well, we'll do in the league, but also on
just
Arsenal.
in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or your 3 favorites
okay.
on your Arsenal team, in the league if they're different,
and in the world.
Just all in the world or all time or whatever.
Okay, so all time it's still Thierry Henry. I will go to my deathbed. He will be my favorite player of all time. Right now, though, I love watching Messi, Leo Messi. I mean, he's the greatest of all time, in my opinion, and I will never give up an opportunity to watch him play. He's getting up there now in age, and this will probably be his last World Cup with Argentina. So he's my favorite player right now that's still playing. On Arsenal, it's a tough question because they're all my boys. It's like trying to pick your favorite child. But I will have to go with this English player. His name is Bukayo Saka. He is a 21, and he plays on the right wing, and he's just awesome. And he's been on the team since he was 17, 18, and he's just grown every year, and he's going to be even better this year. And I love that. I love that man. I don't have a favorite player outside of Arsenal. That's not allowed.
Just doesn't happen.
No. Although I do enjoy watching Liverpool play. I like the way they play, but I don't like any of their players.
Yeah, you appreciate the art form, but you can't actually root for them.
No,
unless they're playing a team that is
if they're playing Tottenham, I will root for Liverpool. And one of my best friends is from Liverpool, and hopefully he listens to this. And he'll be upset that I will say I'm not rooting for Liverpool, but it's true.
It's the same with American football. You have to root for the Eagles or whoever's playing against the Patriots right now.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I've always had the philosophy of home team they're my team, but I always try to pick someone like in either like the other league or just like elsewhere. So I know I had a family member who was from San Diego. So I was like, yeah, all right, I like the Chargers. I don't pay attention to them really, but, if they're playing, go for it.
Yeah. You could kind of do that with the Premier League. There's other leagues in the world. Like, I follow Barcelona. There's, French league, Portuguese league, German league, Italy league. There's a Scottish league. There's an Irish league, and they all differ in quality, but, you can pick a team from any country really and follow them. That's the beautiful thing about they only play each other in European competitions, so you can still root for them to win the league or whatever.
But none of it compares to the Premier League.
No, in my opinion, no.
So again, we're sort of taking this from you're experienced with this in sort of as it's European thing, and we're kind of coming from an American perspective, so we're familiar with, either baseball games all week or, your Monday, Sunday, every other day of the week, football.
Yeah.
When do you catch, these games?
So normally they're on Saturday and Sunday mornings here. So the early game would be a lunchtime game over there. So it'll be about 7 a.m. here. And then they'll go on through till, the last game will, if there's a night game, the last game will be at like 2:45 our time. Usually there's night games they save for midweek games. So it's normally around like 11 will be the late game. So just get up on a Sunday morning, instead of turning on any cartoons, you turn on some Premier League soccer, have some breakfast watching elite athletes do their thing.
That sounds pretty nice, catching like a morning game.
Yeah, it's great. You still have your whole day. It's 2 hours in and out. So it's always 2 hours. There's no overtime. It's 2 hours. That's one of my biggest selling points. It's not football. You're not here for an undetermined amount of time. It's 90 minutes plus 15-minute halftime, give or take a couple minutes at the end of each half. 2 hours in and out.
Very succinct. I like it.
Yeah, that is kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
Especially compared to, baseball. How long's a game?
Yeah.
Who's playing?
Depends. Either they're really good or really bad. In those cases, the game could go on for literal hours after it should.
Yeah.
So, who's to watch this season? What are we? You said it's a weird season.
Yeah, so it'll just be, there will be nothing in November, December, because it'll be the World Cup. But I think Arsenal's first game is August 6th.
August 6th,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
So, who are the teams to watch? Or, I guess who are the teams to watch, but also who's won recently?
So, Manchester City, unfortunately, has won 4 of the last 5 titles.
Wow.
They are starting to become dominant, and I expect nothing less from them this year again. It'll be a 2-horse race between Manchester City and Liverpool. Liverpool's the last couple of years have been literally right on their tails. I think combined, the last 2 titles Manchester City has won, they've won it by a total of like 3 points in the last two or 3 times, with Liverpool being behind them. Going to the last day and Liverpool needing City to lose or City needing to win kind of thing. So it's definitely going to be those 2 at the top and then everybody else.
Any interesting dark horses? Somebody who's had a recent big shakeup that might...
So Chelsea is going to have an interesting year with the whole Ukraine thing. They used to be owned by a Russian oligarch. And basically after the invasion of Ukraine, the British government made him sell the team. And an American bought it, the guy who owns the Dodgers. But the previous owner, Roman Abramovich, kind of used Chelsea as his plaything and would pump money in with no regard to whether he'll lose it or not. So it'll be interesting to see how they go forward and their plan moving forward and how they team build.
That's huge.
Yeah. That could be an entirely different team this year.
Yeah. He's owned the team since 2006 or something. So it's been he's had the team for a long time. So it's going to be a big culture shock, I think.
Is Chelsea one of the big 6? Or?
Yeah. So the big.
So it's even like.
Yeah. So the big 6 is. I'm going alphabetical order, so don't get mad at me. Arsenal, I'll put them at the top. And then you have Chelsea, you have Manchester City, you have Liverpool, you have Manchester United, and you have Tottenham. That I did on purpose. I put Tottenham at the bottom. But, so those are the big 6. And what you're aiming for, not only are you aiming for the title, but there's also kind of different things you aim for lower than that, like the top 4 spots in the Premier League qualify for the UEFA Champions League, which is the biggest European competition. So you want to be in that top 4 to not only like as a status thing, but like you get TV deals and you get, a lot more money when you're in the top 4. And the 5th and 6th place go into the Europa League, which is just the lesser version of the Champions League. So, if you're in 7th place looking in, you're probably missing out on easy 50 million pounds, 30 million pounds, something like that. So there's a lot of things to play for outside of the title.
It seems like the stakes are pretty high.
Yeah.
Even if you sort of make it, but you don't really fail, you still lose out on money.
So that's exactly what Arsenal did last year. I say we, like I had any input in it.
As far as we're concerned, you are the representative.
Yeah.
So we finished 5th by 1 point. Tottenham, unfortunately, finished above us in 4th place. So we qualified for the Europa League and probably missed out on 20-30 million pounds that would come to the club. And then that's not even, counting all the, like I said, the status and the prestige of being in the Europe's most prestigious competition. So,
and you got to figure that's even the experience you're gaining.
Mm-hmm. Especially for Arsenal's team is very young. A lot of players from the 22 to 25 range. So that would have playing at that top level would have definitely helped them develop as players. So knock on wood that we keep our momentum going this year and qualify in the top 4. That's my aim for this year is top 4.
Yeah, best of luck to them. I mean, it sounds like usually young teams are really fun to watch in any kind of competition.
Yeah, it's definitely been fun to see these kids kind of come through. There's a good group of them that have come through Arsenal's academy and have made their debuts for the first team. So it's been really cool to see those kids grow as players and kind of see, some new players getting thrown in and just seeing how the team has developed over the past few years has been really cool because we were in a dark place a few years ago. If you asked me to do this podcast 2 years ago when they came in 8th place 2 years in a row, we would have had a different tone.
Yeah, especially for, I guess, fan base that's kind of used to it being up there.
Yeah.
When you're real low down.
Exactly. It was not fun.
Well, has Arsenal ever won have they won the Premier League before?
Yes. Not in a very long time. The last time they won was in 2003, 2004, which in that year they went undefeated, which they're still the only English team to go through a whole season undefeated. But overall, so they've won 13 league titles, which I think is third or fourth most in English history. So they're definitely one of the more historic clubs in the country.
Well, it's still a more recent win than a Cowboys Super Bowl.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
So
that's true.
Can't be too mad about that.
That's true.
Although, what does that mean for Tottenham? What is
It's spelled Tottenham, but it's pronounced Tottenham.
Tottenham.
Yeah, just 2 syllables. Tottenham.
Tottenham.
What do you mean by what is that?
When was their last?
Get ready for this. 1960. 1961.
Can't be too bad.
Yeah. There are many songs that the Arsenal fans sing that make fun of Tottenham, but one of my favorites is "You Won the League in Black and White."
It's very good.
Yeah. I will say this about British soccer fans. They have a very, very acute sense of humor, and it is very funny.
I've heard variations. They can be very cutting.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have no problem spouting anything with children around them. So it is definitely something to get used to as an American sports fan.
I mean, again, we are from Philly, so I've been told we're about as close to the English fans as people can get.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that.
I'd say they're probably a lot more coordinated in their
That's true.
than we are.
We're a bit more violent than we are clever, but
I would argue, and this is me just speculating, that when it gets bad, does the Premier League, are they still on top of that, or
yeah, they're very much. They have different laws over in the UK, obviously, and it's a lot different. Our freedom of speech is different than their freedom of speech. It's just how laws are written and everything. But they'll go through footage and find individual people who are doing individual things and make sure they're not allowed in the stadium anymore.
Yeah, I imagine the CCTV has helped curb some of the hooliganism.
Yeah. which is a very, very touchy subject over there. It's gotten a lot more Americanized, I'll say, over the last 20, 30 years. If you ask my friend in Liverpool, he, when his dad was going to games and his granddad was going to games, there was no, you didn't bring your kids. I'll say that.
No guarantee of safety.
But now it's very Americanized. There's a lot of American owners over there who want to have the same amount of family friendly experiences as there are here.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a similar thing over here in recent years with hockey. A lot of the rules changes were to make the game a little bit less violent and therefore, family friendly and profitable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't ask me anything about hockey. I don't know anything about hockey.
Nobody is an expert in everything. As I said, I know next to nothing about proper English football, but,
Unless you use the word proper in the right context, though.
I have seen, I think, 2 Union games. I hate our mascot. I do not understand why we made a snake with arms and legs instead of just a lizard, but, they can't all be gritty.
Yeah.
No, they cannot.
But the Union games are fun. I love going to Union games.
Would that be a good jumping off point for someone? Because obviously the Premier League is overseas. So, although you mentioned, I think just before we started officially, that you were going to see Arsenal.
Yeah.
Are you making a trip, or are they coming here?
No, they're coming here. A lot of teams do their preseason, have preseason tours around the world, basically. So this year, Arsenal's coming to Baltimore and Orlando. So my girlfriend and I are going to go see them in Baltimore for the day. I know Manchester United and Liverpool are in Asia somewhere. Tottenham are in Korea, I think. Some teams go down to Australia. It's a money-making machine at this point for them.
It is always one of those things that has always seemed kind of odd. Because, football is the biggest sport in basically every country but ours, and I think Japan, where baseball just slightly beats it.
Yeah. So they've basically been trying to expand their brand across the world. And I'm not complaining. I get to see my favorite team for only the 3rd time in my life. So they can come over every year as far as I'm concerned.
Well, let's hope they do. I mean, I think I would love to see that sort of thing.
Yeah, I will say it's not the same intensity. It's preseason, they're just getting back from their vacations and all that, and they're ramping up. So you won't see the same intensity as you will on any given Premier League match day. But it is, you can see the difference if you go to a Union game, which I highly recommend. You'll see the difference between how much faster the league is compared to the American League.
I haven't been to a Union game, but I've been meaning to.
They're very fun, very affordable.
Yeah, it's a cheap and good time, especially compared to most of the other Philly teams.
And they're good. They're first place in the East right now. So
Did they come in second in the last? Whatever they call the championships.
So the MLS Cup playoffs, they made it to the conference finals last year, and unfortunately had a very ill-timed COVID outbreak within their team, and ended up losing to the eventual champion NYCFC 2-1. But they played about 6 teenagers, so they did us proud.
I think the last time I paid attention to them was when Pierre Letou was on their team.
Sebastian too.
Is it Sebastian too?
Yeah.
I think his name was Pierre.
I don't know. Sebastian. He's still involved with the club, though.
I don't even know who that is.
That's the Skunk from Looney Tunes, isn't it?
No, that's Pepe Le Pew.
Oh, Pepe Le Pew.
Pierre Le Pew.
We're getting off track.
From Captain Crunch? Think Captain Crunch.
Oh, because he's based off Jean Lafitte.
Jean Lafitte. So it's Pierre Lafitte. Yeah.
That's funny.
One of the weirder tangents we've had in the show, but...
Yeah, there's no one existing whose name is Pierre Letou. I don't know why.
Yeah.
See, that's how far out the game I am.
Yeah.
All right, just go back on to football instead of cereal mascots. All right, you said the World Cup's coming up. What do these teams do? I mean, obviously they don't play. The league doesn't play. But I'm guessing a lot of these players head back to their home nations if they're selected for the national teams?
Yeah, so the league play will stop sometime mid-November, early November, something like that. And then if you get selected to be part of your national team, you'll fly wherever the team's meeting. if it's, I get selected for the American team, I'll fly back here and then fly to Qatar, however you want to pronounce it, with the team. So basically, the Premier League teams will have that month off, but they'll still, any of the players who don't get selected for their national teams will still be there practicing and training, try and stay fit for when the season restarts.
Since this is an oddity, we wouldn't really know about how they would even go from, all right, World Cup's over, come on, what's the time between
So I think the time between the World Cup final, which is the biggest game in the world, don't let anyone say otherwise, that's the biggest game in the world. I think there's maybe 2 weeks for them to come back and then the league restarts. So it's really unprecedented. There's never been a Winter World Cup before. It's always been June to July. So every team in the world plays the European calendar is going to be in the same boat. So it's going to be interesting.
That'll be something to watch. But for who are the rising stars in the EPL to be looking for these?
So my favorite player, Bukayo Saka, rising star, is going to be at the top of the game soon enough. Hopefully Arsenal can be there with him. But he will be a top player. If you're talking rising stars, there's Manchester City just signed probably the best young player in the world, Erling Haaland, who's from Norway, from the German team Borussia Dortmund. He is a machine of a man. Just big, strong, fast, hits the ball a million miles an hour. It'll be his first season in England this year, so it'll be cool to watch him. Liverpool signed a young striker from Portugal. I think he's Uruguayan, Darwin Nunez. So he'll be interesting to watch and how he integrates into that team. And there's, if you want to watch the two American players, Brendan Aronson, who was a Philadelphia Union player 3 years ago, is now going to be playing in the Premier League, which is unreal. Never thought I'd say that sentence before. But it'll be fun to see how he adapts. And Tyler Adams, who is from New York, how he adapts to the league. So I'll definitely be watching a lot of Leeds games this year just to see how well they do. And especially for an American audience, it's cool to, especially from a Philly audience, the Brendan Aronson's from Medford. So, he's hometown. He's a hometown kid. So I'll definitely be rooting for him this year.
Yeah. Any athlete around here that goes to the world stage is just everybody's all in.
Yeah.
There's still, if you drive into Wildwood still, there is a giant sign that still says Simone Biles flipped burgers at... Yeah. I can't even remember the place,
but they still have that sign up, yeah.
Yeah, going to play in the English Premier League has got to be
Yeah, it's unreal. I remember watching him when he came into the Union as a floppy-haired 17-year-old, and now he's 22, about to play with the best players in the world. That's crazy to think about.
I guess the equivalent would probably be, if you follow college football, it's this guy's getting picked up by the NFL, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, there's similarities in that, but it's also you're not just going to one league. You can go anywhere, which is you can go anywhere and make a living too. There's college players who go overseas and play third division Norwegian soccer and make a cool living out of that. You get to live in a different country, experience a different culture, and it's really cool. Soccer's cool, everybody. Soccer's cool.
I will always kind of wonder how it just never took off here the way it did. Again, literally every other country in the world.
I do not have an answer for that. That is an existential question that will probably never have an answer. But it is growing, in my opinion. This may ruffle some feathers, but it's bigger than hockey here, I think, now. Soccer as a whole, not just the MLS, but soccer as a whole, I think, is probably the third, fourth biggest sport in America right now. Yeah, if it's not past baseball, it's right there with baseball.
Do you mean that as people watching it on a professional level, or do you mean that as just in the cult, play, watch, all?
I think all of it. Culturally, I think it's probably the third or fourth, especially with a lot of immigrants coming over, like that's their sport.
Yeah.
But not only just that, like there's so much more money being invested in the sport at like youth levels and TV contracts, and you can literally turn on TV and there will be a soccer game somewhere on the TV. And just that exposure, I never had that exposure when I was growing up. Like, I just came back from golfing with my dad and his buddy, and he has a 5-year-old. That kid's been watching soccer every Saturday morning since he was born. You know, that's something that I never had as a kid, but my kid will have. So it'll be interesting to see how much it grows in the next 10 to 15 years and see if it can get up to that basketball, football level.
I'd certainly love to see that. I'd love to be able to root for another team.
Yeah. And
genuinely be like, oh, instead of just, oh yeah, we do have one of those.
Yeah. I feel that is how a lot of people feel about, Union is, oh, we have a soccer team?
Yeah.
It's like, yes, they're one of the best in the country.
Yeah. And they'll get there. The better they are for longer, the people will start taking notice. And especially if I don't personally don't care however which way you get into soccer. If you start watching it on Saturday mornings and then be like, oh, the Union's here, let me go catch a game. Or if you're a Union fan and Brendan Aronson is a Union player and he signs for Leeds United, you go, I'm going to watch Leeds United now. I personally don't care which way it goes. As long as you're supporting the game, I'm cool.
I can see the wisdom in that. I like that.
I just don't see the point in, especially when I was in high school, it wasn't like quote unquote cool to be a soccer player, but like there's no point in gatekeeping it. If you come up to me and this podcast is a thing in and of itself, like you guys don't have a lot of knowledge about it, but you're willing to listen and willing to learn. I'm not going to be like, oh, you don't know who the striker is on Aston Villa, I'm not talking to you. Like, why would I? If someone who genuinely wants to learn and be a part of this culture, I will do my best to help them be a part of it.
If there's one point that we ever get across to people in this podcasting, it's don't gatekeep. It's terrible. Invite people into your fandoms. You know, I grew up in the mid-tier of D&D's resurgence, and I was one of the nerdy kids for liking D&D, and now it's 10 years after that, and suddenly it's one of the hottest properties in the world. I know people who've been playing longer than me that are angry that now there are more players, and I don't understand it.
It's like the Bruce Springsteen fans who are pissed that he went pop or whatever. It's just, who cares? As long as you enjoy it, who cares? And don't stop other people from enjoying it is my big thing.
Even if they pick the wrong team.
Even if they pick, you can be a Tottenham fan. I won't like it, but you can be a Tottenham fan. My friend's dad is a Tottenham fan. I'm not going to not talk to him. We'll have some friendly banter, but being a Tottenham fan isn't going to make you a bad person. You just have bad taste in teams.
It's something that brings people together. It's not supposed to.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's what the World Cup's for. World Cup is bringing the whole world watching this one event. Like, think about that. Like, they have, I think the last viewership for the last World Cup was 2 billion people watched it.
Wow.
Like, that's like a quarter of the world. Like, probably not a quarter, but...
it's 7 billion people.
Yeah, I think we might be up to 8 at this point. But I don't know who's keeping the track of
that's a lot of people watching one thing at the same time, and
especially when you consider for some of those people that's this is a nice afternoon game, and for some of those people it's 3:00 in the morning and they're watching.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's what I've always loved about it being the world's game is it's the world. It's not like us versus them. Well, it is. And when it's Arsenal versus Tottenham, it's us versus them. But as the culture as a whole is, I've always felt that, it's been, everyone I've met has been very welcoming, regardless of who their fandom is. I've gone to London a couple times. I've had great conversations with Tottenham fans, Chelsea fans, Manchester United fans. Two of my best friends are Liverpool fans. So, we're all rooting for the same thing. We're just different teams.
I have one question, because I see it a lot around here, and I don't know how indicative it is, but I know they're soccer jerseys, football jerseys, but...
You can say soccer. We're in America.
Soccer, football. Yeah. Well, that's a different question I have is, don't like a whole bunch of countries call it soccer?
No, we're the only one. Us and Australia, I think.
Because Australia has a completely different third game called football.
Yeah.
They call American football gridiron, which I think is what we should change it to, because
it sounds way cooler.
That's way more metal sounding.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's just us in Australia and Canada that call it soccer.
Tracks.
Yeah.
But the one question I have is I always see people with football jerseys around here. I know it's at least not just EPL, it's around the world. Do Emirates Airlines sponsor everybody, or is it one team? Because they all have that. That's the one thing I remember from them. I can't tell.
It's Arsenal's sponsor also, shirt sponsor also, but they sponsor a ton of teams.
Okay, so
it could be any. It could be Arsenal. It could be Real Madrid. It could be PSG. It could be Boca Juniors in Argentina. It could be AC Milan. That's all I got off the top of my head. But I mean, they sponsor a ton of teams. Again, not to get too political, but I think that's just the Emiratis sports washing. Be like, oh, I see Fly Emirates. I don't think of, the human rights abuses of their government. I'll think of Arsenal,
There's been a similar issue for fans of fighting games lately with them purchasing all of SNK and a portion of Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's like 10 cents all over again. Well, I'm glad that now I know the answer to that. It bothered me. I'm like, there's so many different colors. But are they all the Emirates team? Is that a team?
Yeah, so...
I don't know.
What you want to look for is the badge, which would be right over right over the heart.
For Arsenal, it's a cannon.
It's a cannon, yeah.
I'd probably pick them based on that alone.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the cooler potential logos.
The history behind it is Arsenal started as Woolwich Arsenal, which is a bunch of guys used to work for the Armory in London and decided to form a team, and they worked at the Arsenal, so they were called the Arsenal.
Pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
But you still get a cool logo out of it.
A cool logo.
And 100 years later, they're one of the premier teams in the world.
Yep.
What are the other logos in the league like? Is it even close to a cannon? Are there animals? What are
there's a lot of lions. And England and lions.
Yeah, England loves their lions.
Tottenham has it sounds more feminine than it is. It's a chicken on a ball. I don't know the history behind that one. I don't particularly care to learn it. But you have Liverpool, which has the liver bird on their badge, which is a mythical bird that comes from their culture. You have the Red Devils, which are Manchester United. They have a little devil with a trident. And then you have teams that are nicknamed animals. Like Newcastle United are called the Magpies because they're black and white.
Makes sense.
You have Brighton Hove and Albion, which are on the south coast, so their logo is a seagull.
Birds.
A lot of birds, a lot of lions. Swansea in Wales. Their logo is a swan, obviously.
I was going to say, all right, is this bait and switch or is this cut and dry?
But yeah, there's the logo itself isn't as big as the badge itself. The badge will be on everything. You'll get just a cannon on some Arsenal merchandise, like the shirt I'm wearing now. But 98% of the time, it'll be the full badge.
I guess it's kind of like the Monopoly piece way of looking at things, but that's another way. I think as a small child that didn't understand anything, that was certainly how I would pick a team. What's the coolest logo?
Yeah, and it's the same thing. Liverpool has this problem's too negative a word, but there are two teams in Liverpool and Everton, whose stadiums are separated by probably what about the size of FDR Park would be here. So normally there's Arsenal and Tottenham have neighborhoods affiliated with them. There's a road, Seven Sisters Road, that cuts across North London. If you live on one side of Seven Sisters Road, you're going to be a Tottenham fan. If you live on the other, you're going to be an Arsenal fan. That's historically how it goes. But with Liverpool, it kind of being so integrated, I'll say. My friend's dad's a Tottenham fan, but he grew up in Liverpool. you like the color red, he's going to be a Liverpool fan. They're the Reds. If you like the color blue when you're a kid, you're going to be an Everton fan. It's just how it is. And there's households divided all over Liverpool that are just like that. Dad being a Liverpool fan and son being an Everton fan, and vice versa. And so it's interesting to see how and why teams are picked.
That's really interesting to me, especially when I've always felt like whenever I would talk about sports, because I didn't, up until a few years ago, I didn't really care about a lot of them, but being when I was in not elementary school, but grade school, just talking about like sports or whatever, a lot of kids I knew would talk about like the Raiders or, again, like they talk about the Lakers or something, and it's like, what do you mean you guys are talking about like all these other teams that are nowhere near us? What do you mean you're talking about California?
Yeah. I've always thought those people have just like picked a different team to be different and to be a contrarian.
Sometimes.
Like all those Cowboy fans that live in Philly are so fake.
Understand it.
They're so fake. They're just like trying to piss off their dad for some reason. Don't even get me started on them.
That'll be another podcast.
Yeah.
That'll be another podcast. But it seems like you're really well versed with the culture.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to, like, when I really got into it, I tried to kind of immerse myself in how it feels to be an Arsenal fan, regardless of the fact that I live in Philadelphia. Like, I want to be an Arsenal fan like the Arsenal fans in North London are. And so, I did my studying. I know my history. And just because I have a different accent doesn't mean that you're any better of an Arsenal fan than I am, or vice versa. So, like I said, the gatekeeping stuff is very annoying. And it still happens, there'll still be some guy from London being like, you're not a real Arsenal fan, you don't go to games. But I'd go to games if I could.
Yeah, I'm sorry I can't afford to fly to England every week.
Sorry, you guys live all across the ocean.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
And, this is a bit of a tangent, but I picked Arsenal. I became an Arsenal fan before the Union existed. I didn't have an outlet in Philadelphia. I wasn't going to root for a New York team. Wasn't going to root for a DC team. So I was like, all right, I got to look elsewhere until team in Philadelphia comes, and picked Arsenal. It's been rock and roll history ever since.
I guess you missed like the kicks.
Yeah, the kicks are. I was a little bit too young for the kicks before they went defunct.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, I was just in that weird time where there was no soccer in Philadelphia. And hopefully, if anyone important is listening, we need a women's soccer team in Philadelphia. Get it done.
I would agree with that. So the English Premier League, on that same note, is it co-ed league or is it men only?
No, it's men only. There is a women's league that is growing over there. Arsenal do have a women's team. Most of the big teams have women teams that are part of the club.
So it's like the same name, but like...
Yeah, so they play the same badge, same uniforms, but obviously in a women's league. And Arsenal just missed out on the women's title this year by 2 points. Chelsea ended up winning. But the women's game is growing worldwide. I would say the women's game in England is about where the MLS is here. It's growing. It's gotten a lot better over the last few years, but it still has a lot of room to grow.
Well, isn't in the United States, isn't the women's soccer, or like the women's soccer, is the women's soccer team or soccer league is still bigger than the MLS?
No. The women's league itself is still semi-professional, which needs to be the next step too. And I know this is a podcast about English soccer and I'm getting off track, but the next step is to fully professionalize the women's league and not have to be subsidized by U.S. soccer. But it's getting there, and they'll get there soon. If the U.S. women's team keeps performing at World Cups and Olympics, they'll get there eventually.
Yeah. I can't wait to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I know a few weeks ago on Reddit, it was trending, was the Portland, because apparently they have a real big...
Yeah, they have a real big following in Portland. Portland's a good soccer city.
Yeah, especially for the women's team.
Yeah. Portland and Seattle are probably the standard bearers for MLS and the NWSL for fan culture. As much as I would like to say the Union is. We're not anywhere close to them.
Well, hopefully the Sons of Ben can do their best to get that up those numbers.
Yeah,
we'll have our own EPL.
Yeah,
with different regulations.
In 20, 30 years' time, maybe we'll be the EPL, and the Union will be in the Big Six.
We'll see about that.
Yeah. Let's hope.
Many people would say, "Oh, slow your roll."
Yeah.
As we're sort of coming to time, but what else is grand about the EPL? Like, I mean, you sold me. Like, I think I need to just pick a team and see if I can follow them.
Mm-hmm.
But what else, as someone, you're an American, you watch English Premier League, that's the best of the best, the cream of the crop.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you love about it? What else do you like about it? And what advice do you have for people who might right now be going, I'm going to Google these teams and see which is the one for me?
Very good question. What else do I love about it? I mean, the one piece of advice I'll give is pick a team and stick with that team and like learn to love it. Like get invested in it because it's so much more fun like living and dying with it. And you can watch it as a neutral and you can appreciate the art. But if you don't know the ins and outs of the game, like how are you going to appreciate the art of it? If you want to be a Manchester City fan and win all the titles every year, but watch some like great soccer doing it, be my guest. Just that would be my one piece of advice. Pick a team, stick with it, learn to love it, and your knowledge of soccer will come along as you're watching it. Don't just give up, 45 minutes into the first game you're watching because it's 0-0 and there's been 14 shots, but none of them have been on goal. When the goal comes, it'll be worth it. That's the best thing is sports, is watching a goal go in. There's no other feeling like it. Not a touchdown, not a three-pointer, not a home run. A goal in soccer is the best feeling in the world because there's so few.
The few, the proud.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, do you have any more questions about it? Has any of this opened up anything for you?
I mean, it's I can't really think of any other questions I have, but I will say I've appreciated your enthusiasm for this.
Of course. I told Dave's sister Laura, I was like, you get me talking about soccer and Arsenal, I'll talk about it. I don't have a ton of close friends in Philly that love to talk about it. I obviously have other friends around the country and in Liverpool, but it's one of my passions. I love the sport. I love this team. So, thank you guys for giving me an opportunity to talk about them today. I had a blast.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, and are there any local spots? Because I know that's like kind of sometimes
it's always more fun to be with a group.
Yeah,
that's true. And sometimes pubs or bars or whatever have like, all right, we watch these games on these days.
Yeah.
So are there any hangouts for either just EPL in general or even Arsenal or
so
those Dread and Tottenhams?
Yeah, unfortunately, I know where they go to, but
I would imagine not to go there.
Yeah, exactly. Avoid this place at all costs. No, I'm just kidding. If you wanted to go to a bar that had kind of more of a neutral feel to it, I would suggest Fido in Rittenhouse. They'll have every game on, every TV. They have a big screen, and they have smaller screens you can go in the back and watch by yourself or with a group of people. The Arsenal group in Philadelphia does have a specific bar they meet at. We meet at Misconduct Tavern on Locust, right across the street from Fido. But my advice would be if you wanted to go to a specific team's bar, I would look them up on Facebook or whatever, and a lot of the groups will have where they meet in their like about section or whatever. Most supporters groups kind of have their own little hangout spots, but definitely I would say Fido is a good like neutral starting off point if you want to just chill, have a few morning beers, and watch some good soccer. Nothing better than morning beers. Nothing better. Getting to the bar at 10 a.m., having a few drinks, watching Arsenal win. Nothing better.
That sounds proper.
Yeah.
Sounds proper.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming and illuminating us to the world of the kings of football, the pinnacle of the pitch. Is there anything else you need to leave us with?
No, just if anyone's listening to this and wants to give it a try, no one's stopping you, and go at your own pace. You don't have to learn everything about it in a second. Just enjoy yourself and have fun. And thank you guys for having me.
You're welcome. One quick thing. This might be fun. Does Arsenal have any sort of fun?
Oh yeah, chants or?
Oh, okay. Well, I gave you the one about Tottenham winning the league in black and white.
Is there a clean one that's Arsenal, a Go Birds or an EAGL? That's not 6 letters, is it?
No, it's not.
Fit the same.
Clean one. You got me on that one. There's the one big chant is, we love you, Arsenal, we do. 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 Oh, Arsenal, we love you. And you'll hear that throughout the game, whichever game you're watching. That'll be there. The one I'll tell you off mic about Tottenham is my favorite, but I'll save that for off mic.
I'm looking forward to hearing it. I'm sure other people can look that up at their own expense.
Yes.
But as for us, once again, thank you, John, for coming on and talking about the EPL. This has been the Lansdowne Library's Geek Out podcast. Jeff, if people are interested in coming on the show or finding the rest of these episodes, where can they go?
Oh, well, they can go right to lansdownelibrary.org/podcasts. And if you'd like to join us, there's a green Register Here button where you can, just type in your information and what it is you'd like to geek out about with us.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. That was fun.